Thank you guys for joining us on this exclusive interview with the Jason Hill. I am the engineer, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into our two-part interview here. The first part is going to be centered around the design of the Aptera itself, the physical parts of the vehicle. The second portion is going to be a situation where we talk about the ones and zeros, if you will, that make up the UI and things of that nature. Uh, thank you for joining us, and here we go.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure to meet you and indeed a lot of people at CES. Unfortunately, you and I had a great beginning conversation, but we weren't able to do essentially what we're going to do today at the CES event. So happy to do this. It's a perfect time. It's a little bit of a holiday for this week, and I did want to. You had reached out, and I did want to have a chance to have that dialogue with you because I really appreciate your insightful kind of framing, if you will, on the product and the questions that you come up with. So great to be here.
Right, fantastic. Let's go ahead and jump right in here.
Sure.
Speaking more on CES, what was your impression of the event as a whole, like the Aptera booth and things like that? Were there things that went really well that you appreciated? Was there challenges that you had to overcome?
The opportunity to have a representative vehicle and the inside, let's call it the frame, the bink, and the associated frame, the opportunity to have that there and make the connection for like our consumers and our fans, like, oh, it's way more real than just what they've been showing in pictures or videos or renderings, right? We have a little bit of a joke. It's like, oh, it looks like the renderings. Well, yeah, it's the same data. We literally take the same CAD data and we visualize it in some manner, but we also use that same CAD data, as you know, to cut tools or to 3D print things or to fabricate them to let's say design and engineering spec. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the opportunity to see and support our community, but also a lot of outreach to other industry people. By industry, I mean tech, not vehicle industry. So we found a lot of connections through that CES platform to a greater audience, whereby they were able to understand the product and the project a little bit more. So I think that was highly, highly beneficial. I don't have comment on the challenges. That was much more the logistics of things.
Hmm,
But it did, CES was a force action that allowed everybody to bring their best to bring the vehicles together, no matter, where we were at. So it was
gotcha.
great.
All right. So you mentioned a little bit about getting to meet other people in the tech world that uh, get to understand and know a little more about Aptera. Was
Mhm.
there something that you noticed at CES specifically that would have been like, oh, that'd be a really interesting addition to the Aptera, or the technology here is really neat?
Great question, and I'll answer it this way. The short answer is yes, but you have to categorize where in the stream of, as we march towards production, where in the stream can you make these, let's say, upgrades or this integration of these opportunities. Let me also add that some of the manufacturers that we're currently working with, like the touchscreen supplier, the lighting supplier, the battery pack manufacturer, probably three or four others, they were able to see the physicality in person and also put the comments on it. Then we found another layer of new companies that were bringing their best to it. So the idea is to categorize what we're doing versus what we can do next. And by next, I mean, at what point do you integrate an upgraded technology into the production design as it sits now?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a fun one here. You asked me at CES what I thought design was, and like to the best of my ability, I understand design as like a marriage of style and function. Like how completely wrong am I, and where do you fall on design? Like, what do you think that means?
I will answer it this way. Design is a process whereby you have a kind of a goal. It's a systemic process of understanding the methodology for production, mass production, instead of making one. It's understanding the requirements. It's understanding the user. One of the last things we consider, even though it's the highest profile, is what is the style. And Aptera is a unique product because the style resultant, we don't start with, oh, let's make it look this way. It's got to be like mission and purpose and first principles driven. And then it has to combine with the available techniques for volume production. Now we get to decide, we get to define what volume is, right? We don't need to compare like volume of that company or volume of this company. So that's another benefit of the Aptera product. So your question about design, in this case, it's having a systemic approach that encompasses all of those things, and then the resultant product. So you take the engineering input, you take the material input, you take the manufacturing method input, and it's kind of a collection of judgments.
Hmm.
That's what design is to me. It becomes a resultant because you always say, whether it's a visual aspect, does that look better if it's a little bit bigger, or does it look better if it's a little bit smaller? If it's lighter, heavier, is it faster or slower? All of these things. Is the light in the interior? Is it better brighter, or is it better dim? Like, how do we maximize that? And eventually you distill it into a whole set, and then you execute.
Yeah, that actually reminded me of the justice is blind situation, lady holding the scales. I was thinking as you were like, oh, is it faster or slower, better, smaller, bigger? Yeah, that reminded me of that particular statue for some reason. I don't know. Uh,
Good. I'm glad it was visual. That's another thing, that we're verbally communicating, but the
mhm.
visual aspect is so powerful because it along with, well, I think it's second to smell as the most powerful, like, emotive or, kind of way to communicate. But the relation of what the visual outcome is, and then backed up with what the, let's say, logical, or, why does it do that and what is it for? It's a constant challenge to manage, let's say, and really judge, is it better if we don't have X amount of wheels, doors, seats? You can do anything, or you can do one specific thing and stick to that very doggedly. And that's really what the mandate from Steve and Chris is like, that's what we're doing.
So what is the it factor for you that decides like your overall design choices with like the Aptera specifically, but like in general as a designer, what is your I don't know, your mantra, your single word that guides your path? What is that for you these days?
Well, specifically for Aptera, it's efficiency. So it's efficiency of the process, it's efficiency of the result. There's a lot of ways to complicate an iron ball, and that's a big. I always go back to that. It's like it doesn't need to be that complicated, right? No matter the desire or the kind of preconceived notion, when you enter a market segment that's established, you have lots of boundaries that you just want to push a little bit. But this vehicle cannot be categorized. And therefore, that's the opportunity. So a lot of things we now have the opportunity to remove, reduce, be efficient, but also enhance the user experience, delight in a lot of ways that will become apparent only through kind of experience as opposed from a distance.
Oh man, you already got my next question. Nice. So what's the most interesting challenge? Well, no, I'm gonna say what's the most interesting opportunity that you've had in the design of the Aptera?
I think the biggest opportunity and most interesting aspect is really working to understand the DFM, the design for manufacture, and how to use the composite methodology, and then design and engineer towards what the needs of the user will be, meaning the ergonomic, like you have to fit inside this vehicle. Then working cross-platform with everyone to decide these are the specifications, and really driving towards something that is ready for production as opposed to being aspirational, like, well, we're going to do that. We've kind of passed that phase. We
Hmm.
really are showcasing all the best of it, even though some of the materials and some of the final touches are just a matter of supply chain and choosing. For example, the yoke, we don't have that material for production. They don't, it's out of production. And normally you would contract with a supplier and not necessarily have something off the shelf, but you would work with them to get the final material and then they would run it. So there's just a few details on that, but the, the most satisfying part is working with the best engineering minds and understanding their methodologies and having them understand our design goals, which in the end do include the style, but really elevate the whole experience.
So on that note of getting to collaborate with the greatest minds, how do you deal with the Aptera's design issues or disagreements between the team?
Yeah, great question. And it comes through a lot of experience where, you have to figure out which part really matters to who the stakeholder. And you know, the back and forth, which should be healthy, it not always is, but the back and forth, you might have the idea, but the reality when you implement it will either prove you wrong, or the goal is actually to implement something with a little bit of risk and find out, oh, wait, that's way better than we thought it could be. So the biggest challenge is to not default to, well, that's how it's done, so we should do it that way. Now,
Hmm.
there's lots of opportunities to incorporate that thinking, but you really start to hobble the product, especially the uniqueness of what we're doing, if you just throw everything as like we can just take that and just take that, and you're really not pushing any boundaries or offering a lot of value. Your value then comes from purely the cost instead of the value of what the vehicle is made up of.
Hmm.
So I think you guys see that, especially when you approach the vehicle and then you see the bink next to it and you understand like the inside and the outside, they're equally as beautiful to me.
You spoke about value. How do you quantify that value and package that in a way that can be communicated to the person that you are trying to get to purchase this particular product? Like as a YouTuber, I kind of have this kind of back and forth with this is what I want to say, but is everybody going to understand it? Or is there going to be some kind of miss when it comes to how people understand things and how I intended it? Like, how do you navigate that world?
Excellent viewpoint. I would ask you, like, when you look at, let's take the CES, when you're in person and you see the inside and the outside, you're making a value judgment,
Mhm.
right? And there's an emotional judgment about, wow, that's way more impressive than I might have expected. Or it's, oh, yeah, that's kind of meeting my expectations. So the challenge is always to bring the highest value for the lowest hard cost. And that's one of the levers. Like, design is it's a matter of the judgment and taste while respecting all the, let's say, needs of the technology or the process, but you really want to bring your best efforts so that no matter the price, the value is higher. There's
Gotcha.
cost, value, and price. Cost is something you can get, back and forth. Costs go down generally over time. Some things go up, but you kind of work on the cost. The price is what is reasonable, let's say, but the value is the one that you want to really push what the perception of value is along with the reality, where your materials and your NVH and all that including UI UX, that will give you the highest value for the price that you're paying for the cost of the product.
So as you mentioned, you're designing the Aptera for efficiency and ease of manufacture and things of that nature. Have you seen the benefits of this philosophy when like moving to the assemblies of the PIs and things like that? Like, have you already seen the returns on designing for efficiency?
Yeah, and let's start with the PIs because in my experience, this is not, let's say, not my first rodeo on assembly of a vehicle.
Mhm.
Um, they went together with all their little problems that we had. They went together much better than is a normal program. And as Aptera grows and matures through the process, we had some decent little prototypes. We leveled up a little bit to beta and gamma, but this is a whole nother level. And that's very unique to us, is that The resulting product will be way better than the concept or even, show vehicle, let's say. The resulting production product is better. That's very unheard of in a lot of industries, but especially a vehicle situation. So
Gotcha.
the way it was engineered and the way, even though these were essentially hand assembled, they went together in the way that they're supposed to. And there was a lot of benefit to how quickly the vehicle came together because that's how it was designed.